Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're unpacking the incredibly dramatic, high-stakes story of a brand that doesn't just sell transportation, it sells pure emotion. Just think about it for a second. Building airplane engines during world wars, surviving total economic collapse, nearly disappearing completely from the face of the earth, and then somehow rising from the ashes to become one of the most respected luxury car brands on the planet. This is a story of absolute obsession with perfection. So let's just dive right into this and explore the unbelievable journey of survival, disaster, and relentless innovation behind that famous logo. Because to understand how this company actually became a global icon, we really have to realize that their path was anything but a straight paved road, you know? It was full of hairpin turns and near-fatal crashes. All right, first things first, let's look at the name itself. BMW stands for Bayerische Motorenwerke, which simply translates to Bavarian Motor Works. Founded in Germany, with its headquarters still sitting proudly right there in Munich, they established a very specific philosophy super early on. While a lot of other luxury automakers were pouring all their engineering solely into making the ride as soft and floaty as possible, BMW took a totally different route. They focused heavily, almost obsessively, on the driving experience itself. They wanted their cars to feel truly exciting. And that exact philosophy gave birth to this incredibly famous moniker, the ultimate driving machine. Now, this isn't just some clever marketing slogan. It really anchors the emotional core of what the company strives to be. They want the driver perfectly connected to the road. But the wild irony here, they didn't even start out making things for the road. Section 1. From Skies to Streets, a forced reinvention. Let's rewind a bit to the early 1900s, when aviation, not cars, was seen as the absolute pinnacle of future technology. Picture this. Back in 1916, Europe was industrializing rapidly, and BMW was officially formed by merging a few different aircraft engine companies together. Their main business was the sky. During World War I, they built incredibly powerful, super reliable aircraft engines for the German military. They were pushing the boundaries of engineering so far that one of their engines literally broke world altitude records. So long before the world knew them for sleek sports sedans, they were this massive, dominant force in aviation. But then, the world turned completely upside down. With the end of World War I came the Treaty of Versailles, which strictly banned German companies from producing any aircraft engines. Boom! Overnight, BMW lost its entire purpose and its main source of income. This was their first massive crisis. To desperately survive, they had to completely reinvent themselves on the fly. I mean, they went from building record-breaking aviation engines to manufacturing brakes and farm equipment just to keep the lights on. Farm equipment. But you can't keep brilliant engineers down for long. By 1923, they channeled all that talent into motorcycles, launching the R32. This bike introduced their unique boxer engine design, where the engine cylinders punch outward flat on either side, and that became a massive signature for them. It was such a hit across Europe that it finally gave them the capital to take their next big leap. In 1928, they bought a small car manufacturer and officially entered the automobile business with this tiny, simple little car called the 3/15. They were officially an auto brand. Throughout the 1930s, they evolved at lightning speed. They left those tiny economy cars in the dust and started developing really advanced, sporty designs. And the absolute pinnacle of this era was the BMW 328. This car was a total game changer. It was lightweight, remarkably fast, visually stunning, and it quickly became a legend in motorsports. This was the exact era where the public first started viewing BMW not just as a standard manufacturer, but as a deeply respected, performance-focused brand. But history has a funny way of repeating itself, right? And in the most devastating way possible as we head into the 1940s. Section 2. Surviving War and Collapse. The Edge of Extinction. During World War II, BMW shifted heavily back to military aircraft production, and as a result, their factories were systematically targeted and heavily destroyed by bombings. By the time the war ended, they were literally in ruins. So the crucial point here is that during the rebuilding years of the 1950s, they were bleeding money rapidly because they just couldn't find a market fit. They tried building large luxury cars, but in a recovering Europe, way too expensive. Then they tried tiny economy cars, but the profit margins were incredibly weak. They were totally trapped. Things got so incredibly dire that they faced the ultimate threat. Daimler-Benz, the parent company of their fierce rival, Mercedes-Benz, almost bought them out entirely. Think about that for a second. BMW was literally on the edge of extinction, about to be swallowed up and erased from history. But at the final hour, a group of dedicated investors stepped in, blocked the sale, and saved the company. But they demanded a totally new direction. Which brings us to Section 3, the ultimate driving machine, the Phoenix Rises. This showcased a completely new strategy. BMW realized, okay, we have to abandon the extremes of cheap economy and pure floaty luxury. They essentially invented a brand new category, the sporty premium sedan. In the 1960s, they launched the Neue Class, or New Class models. And wow, these cars were a revelation. They featured clean, sharp designs, really strong performance, and amazing handling. They were luxurious, sure, but thrilling to drive. This was the exact moment the company finally found its true modern identity. The ultimate driving machine was officially born. Riding that massive wave of success, the 70s and 80s saw insane expansion. They organized their lineup into the series we all instantly recognize today. The 3 Series became the undisputed king of the sporty sedan category. The 5 Series offered a slightly larger, business luxury feel, while still packing a serious performance punch. And the 7 Series was introduced as their flagship, top-tier luxury cruiser. Each series targeted a totally different customer, but they all maintained that core excitement behind the wheel. And to ensure absolutely no one forgot their racing pedigree, they pulled one of their greatest moves ever, the creation of BMW M. The M stands for Motorsport. This division was created specifically to develop high-performance, racing-inspired vehicles for the street. Cars like the M1, the M5, and the absolutely legendary M3 cemented their status in automotive history. The M3 in particular proved you could have a car that was completely comfortable for your daily commute on Tuesday, but could utterly dominate on a racetrack by Saturday. All of this stems from a really deep engineering obsession. When enthusiasts say BMW feels alive on the road, they're talking about this meticulous attention to detail. Engineers agonize over getting perfect 50-50 weight distribution, incredibly precise steering feel, and driving dynamics that communicate exactly what the tires are doing. Pair all that with their signature front-end kidney grille, and you have a car that is unmistakable both in how it looks and, more importantly, how it feels. Okay, quick aside here, let's address one of the most famous myths in corporate history. If you ask most people what the BMW logo means, they will tell you it's a white airplane propeller spinning against a blue sky, a nod to those aviation routes we talked about. And honestly, early BMW advertisements heavily pushed that imagery. But the official reality, the blue and white are simply the colors of the Bavarian flag, honoring their home region in Germany. Kind of burst the bubble, but it's true. By knowing exactly who they were able to perfectly position themselves against fierce rivals. While Mercedes-Benz leaned heavily into ultimate luxury and comfort, and Audi focused intensely on all-wheel drive technology and clinical precision, BMW planted its flag purely on driver emotion. They bet that there would always be a massive audience of people who simply loved the physical act of driving. And man, did that bet pay off. It turned the brand into a total pop culture phenomenon. BMWs began starring in blockbuster movies, taking over music videos, and filling up celebrity garages everywhere. For an entire generation, cars like the M3 GTR were the ultimate dream car, heavily featured in wildly popular video games like Need for Speed. Later, the futuristic hybrid i8 supercar showed they could do sci-fi just as well as they did heritage. Owning one became a symbol of success and a very specific, passionate lifestyle. But hey, it's not all just victory laps. This brings us to Section 4. Controversies and the future, adapting to a new era. Because when you're a giant selling millions of vehicles globally, growing pains and friction are just inevitable. Navigating the current automotive landscape has definitely brought its share of fierce criticism. They face pushback from all angles nowadays. Some owners point to super expensive maintenance costs and reliability issues in certain highly complex models. Then there's been massive, highly vocal backlash over recent experiments with subscription-based features, like literally charging a monthly fee to use heated seats that are already physically installed in the car. Add to that some highly polarizing design choices, particularly those vastly oversized modern kidney grills, and it's pretty clear the company is walking a challenging tightrope with its passionate fanbase. But they're not just standing still complaining about it. They are pouring billions into adapting for the future. Through their I division, they're rapidly expanding their electric vehicle lineup. They're exploring hydrogen technology, integrating advanced AI systems, and focusing heavily on sustainability and self-driving capabilities. But through all of this massive technological upheaval, they are making one very bold promise to their fans. Even in an era of silent electric motors and self-driving tech, a BMW will always remain exciting to drive. From building aircraft engines in the literal trenches of war, to barely surviving bankruptcy, to creating the absolute blueprint for the modern sports sedan, the narrative of this company is just unmatched. They succeeded because they realized early on that a car can be so much more than just a household appliance. As the source material perfectly sums it up, BMW does not just sell cars, it sells emotion. They sell the sheer thrill of the open road. We've covered a century of wild innovation, disaster, and absolute triumph today. From the vintage 328 to the modern M5, they've built a real lineage of legends. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final thought to consider. If you could have the keys to any era, any model, which BMW is your ultimate dream car? Really think about it. Thanks for hanging out and diving into this fascinating case study with me, and keep exploring.